everything's set. I'll be there. 2 minutes, right?
You should come in now.
I haven't finishing the pie.
Okay, welcome back, everybody. I see we have Amy with us, so I think we're ready to start. Oh, no, maybe not. Oh, there we go. Now we're ready to start. Okay. Good evening, everybody, and thank you for joining us for the Rabbi Goes West Q&A. Before we get started, I would like to acknowledge our co-sponsors, the local Chabads in Sarasota, Manatee County. That is Chabad of Lakewood Ranch in Bradenton, Chabad of Sarasota, Manatee, Chabad of Venice, Chabad of West Bradenton, and lastly, Chabad of downtown SRQ. So tonight for the Q&A, we have with us the producers, Amy Geller and Jerry Perry. Welcome, and it's great to see you.
Oh, we're on mute. Sorry about that. Hi.
There you go. You got to unmute yourself. Yeah, you got it. We also have with us Rabbi Chaim Brook, who is featured in the film. Rabbi Chaim Brook happens to be a cousin, actually, and him and my father, I believe, are named after the same person. And I believe not only is he related to 3 of the rabbis here, he's actually related to 4 of them because Rabbi Schmerling is also a cousin. So you have the 3 Steinmetzes and Rabbi Schmerling, who's a cousin. So we're really, real mishpacha over here. So I would like to start off with a few questions. We're getting a lot of questions in, but I'm going to start off with some questions that I have got before we started the film from people that saw it beforehand. So the first question we have is for Jerry and Amy. Give us some background on yourselves and how you came up with this film and how did you meet Rabbi Brook?
It's my turn. So this is always my question because the film started with me. We live in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and we are what we call secular Jews. We're not particularly attendants of shuls, but Amy and I consider ourselves very, very Jewish. And the idea of this film my idea was to somehow to make a film which connects with what I care about with Judaism, especially. And what I especially care about, I realized, were mezuzahs. We have a wonderful mezuzah on our door, which Rabbi Chaim supplied. I'm saying a wonderful kosher mezuzah, but we've always had a mezuzah, and we love mezuzahs. So I decided I'd like to make a movie about mezuzahs. There's never been such a film. And I went onto the internet and read everything in the world about mezuzahs. And then one day, reading along, I came across the true life story of a Chabad rabbi in Montana, Rabbi Chaim, who had this incredible mission, which was to put a mezuzah on the home of every single Jew in the state of Montana. And Amy and I went, wow, what an ambition, because Montana is huge. I would say where I live, it's like going to Washington, D.C., to Boston. That's how big it is. And Chaim was going around putting up mezuzahs. So I called him up on the phone. He's never met me in my life. He picks up the phone, and I talk to him. I say, Chaim, Rabbi, I don't say Chaim, Rabbi Chaim, may Amy and I come out and watch you put up mezuzahs. And Chaim is a taker of chances. If you know anything about him, he is not someone who stays behind the line. He jumps over the line. He jumped over the line here because without anything else, he invited us out. And we came out to make a film, or at least to investigate. And my part is to say, when we got there, we knew nothing about Hasids. We didn't know any Hasids, and we knew nothing at all about Chabad. And there we were with the camera, and Amy, take over.
What's my part again?
So what happened when we got there?
Okay, so we actually thought we were going to make a short film because when a great subject for a short film is a person on a mission, and we didn't know that there was any conflict. We had no idea, and like Jerry said, we didn't know much about Chabad before we started the film. But when we got there, we discovered, I think we knew in advance that Chaim was married, obviously, but we didn't realize that he had 3 adopted children. And so we learned that, on the spot. And then we discovered, after being there, after filming for one long stint of 4 or 5 days, that there was another synagogue in the same community, and it was a progressive, I know Chaim doesn't like me to use the word progressive. I'm learning this too. It was a Reform synagogue, and that there was some tensions in the community or between the 2 rabbis. So basically, the film very much became our experience. So what you saw, I hope you all got to watch the film. What you saw was sort of our experience as filmmakers in sort of understanding this, the Judaism in Montana. And what Chaim is doing, how Chabad is in a community like Bozeman, and also through the state of Montana, and how that impacts the other Jewish community, other existing Jewish communities in the state, and how they sometimes they get along and sometimes they don't get along. And I know every Chabad community is very different, and I'm sure you'll have stories about your community and how you interact with the other denominations in your community. We understand that no Chabad is monolithic. Everybody, it's all about how you sort of the nature of the relationships that you have in your community, right? So yeah,
Finish.
anyway, that's enough to say.
Yeah. But in one word, we knew nothing about Chabad, and what you see on screen is our process of learning about Chabad and then telling the rest of the world, especially the non-Chabad world, about what we discovered and what we learned.
That's absolutely incredible how you fell into a story. You were searching for mezuzahs, and you were able to create an actual, a complete long film, and it's very cool how that came to be. Rabbi Chaim, how did you feel when you got this call? Were you weary? Were you excited? How did your wife feel about having, a film producers coming into your house and shooting?
When they called, I immediately, I don't have patience for nudniks, for people that call and just want to chew my ear off about an idea that isn't relevant. So some dude called from Massachusetts. He said, yeah, he wants to make a film. So I said, come make a film. So it really left, Jerry may not remember that part of the conversation, but it really left him stuck because he was expecting a conversation, but there really wasn't one. But then he said, but it means we'll have to fly out to Montana. So I said, fly out to Montana, call me when you're at the airport. It was not a long conversation. Of course, there was follow-up with email. Was I weary? I mean, listen, I think if you don't take risks in life, you don't have a chance to succeed at all. So it's always a risk. Every time you talk to your local newspaper and they have some dodo journalist who got the job 15 minutes ago, doing an interview, the chances are very high that they're going to say something silly that you never said, or they'll portray you in the wrong way. But part of being in leadership means you're going to take risks. In this case, it was a risk that meant my family and my community could be portrayed in the wrong way, but it also meant the potential for Mezuzah to reach places that it would have never reached otherwise. And it turns out that the risk paid off. Jerry and Amy made one pledge to me and my family. And I will say that Javi and my children were definitely more hesitant, especially when it came to the third and fourth time that they invaded our home. I said this last night on a Zoom with Jerry and Amy, that at a certain point when my kids would wake up in the morning, come downstairs for breakfast, and they saw Jerry and Amy parked outside, they're like, oh no, they're here again. It was like the invaders were here. And not because they didn't like them, contrary to the way Jerry's going to try to interpret that, but simply because you're a 7-year-old kid, you're a 9-year-old kid eating breakfast, getting ready for school. You don't want someone with a camera there. But they made one pledge. The pledge was that the film would be fair. And I had to take them at their word. And I take a lot of pleasure saying that from all the journalists I've met in my life, their pledge meant something, their word meant something. And I do think the film is fair. The fact that a lot of people that love Chabad are disheartened by what they hear on the film from other Jews in the community, that doesn't mean the filmmakers didn't do an incredibly fair job. And so I am very happy with the results, and I'm grateful to Jerry and Amy for sticking to their word.
Thank you, Chaim.
Beautiful, beautiful. Jerry, this brings up an interesting question. I understand Rabbi Chaim's passion for mezuzahs. Where does your passion for mezuzahs come from?
Well, I think it has to do with me. I don't think we've ever even talked about this, but I grew up at a certain point in my life in West Virginia, in rural West Virginia, where my father taught at an evangelical Christian college, and we were the only Jews at all in the town. So I grew up as, really, it's this weird Jew who wants some Jewish connection. And at one time, I've told Chaim this, somebody, when I was a young kid, came to our house in West Virginia. A rabbi came in, I don't know how he found us, and he talked to my parents about Judaism, and he gave me this coloring book, which was about, an Old Testament coloring book, and the story of Joseph and his many colors. I colored like crazy, and that was kind of my introduction to Judaism and to the symbols of Judaism. So I think that leads me. That's a big leap to that little thing sitting on my door. But that's a symbol that says to the world, I am Jewish. I'd say, pardon my language, is a screw you to Hitler, because Hitler got rid of anybody that had one of those, and Hitler's gone, and the Jews are still here. And so we can put up a mezuzah proudly that we're Jewish. And that's what I think, as a secular Jew, I share completely with Chaim his idea that Jews shouldn't hide the fact that they're Jewish. They should be proud of it, and excellent idea, Chaim.
And it was Levi. I'm still convinced that the rabbi that visited him as a child was a Chabad Merkish Shluch. I can't figure out who was a Merkish Shluchas in West Virginia for Chabad when Jerry was a kid. But who else would show up with
Who else?
Joseph and the Coat coloring book? When did you grow up, Jerry? In the 30s, in the 20s? When was that?
Earlier than that. First World War, this guy came to.
Very cool. We have someone asking, where does Rabbi Brook get, Barry and Barbara Dolan are asking, where does Rabbi Brook get his kosher meat?
Rabbi Brook gets all his kosher food, not just his meat, but his dairy and his bread and his gefilte fish. It all comes on a refrigerated truck from Weinberg Brothers, which is a kosher distributor in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And we get orders about 4 times a year by the pallet, and we have 7 freezers that are loaded with kosher food. So if you come out to Montana, whoever asked that question, will feed you well.
Okay.
Do I look undernourished?
I missed that.
Do I look undernourished?
No, that's what I was going to say. I didn't want to, offend anyone. But.
Okay, we don't get offended. In case you didn't figure that out in the film, it's going to take more than that to get me offended.
Yeah.
We only see Chaim from his neck up. If you saw him from his neck down, he is not nourished.
Marvin Waldman asks, is it typical that when Chabad moves to a new city, there is less than a warm welcome from other shuls. Chaim, I'll let you answer that one.
I think it really depends on the community. In larger communities, in a city with 80, 90,000 Jews, if the other congregations are up in arms, that's simply silly, because there is really no competition. Even if their shul has 10,000 members and the 70,000 Jews sitting around without a shul, it shouldn't be a worry. I think in small towns, it's more of an issue. We live in a city of population 40,000, with about, at this point, maybe 800 homes in the 50-mile radius that have a Jew in them, with a 95% intermarriage rate. So it was inevitable that they should be a little worried. It's interesting that when we first moved out, they were thinking of hiring Chavi to run their Hebrew school. They obviously had no clue and didn't consider us a threat until about 6 months in. But like I tell all of them, I tell all the Reform rabbis in Montana, they really owe me their job. When I moved to Montana, there was not one full-time rabbi in the state of Montana working full-time. Today, there's 6 or 7 of them, and every one of them owes Chabad a token of gratitude for getting a job. Because I assure you, they would not be hired full-time if we were not rocking and rolling, not only in Bozeman, but as you saw in the film, we have 3 Chabad centers. We have one in Missoula. We opened in 2014, and a third one up in Kalispell near Glacier National Park that we opened in 2018. My sister-in-law, my wife's sister, and her husband, Schneier, opened that center. And each one of them is truly incredibly busy and rocking and rolling. And, you know, we're not just helping Yiddishkeit in the traditional Orthodox Yiddishkeit, but all of Yiddishkeit in the state is being uplifted to a new state, including the Reform and slight conservative experience that exists in the Flathead Valley.
Very interesting. I know for myself, when me and my wife moved to town, we did not get any opposition, but I could say when my father could probably say more, because I know when he came to Sarasota about 30 years ago, people told him he's wasting his time and it's too small of a community and he should leave. And now almost like Montana, we have 5 just in the county of Sarasota and Manhattan.
And you know, it's interesting that when we decided to move to Montana in 2007, well, we decided in 2006, Javi and I, we got negative feedback from New York and from Montana. Chabad headquarters, they all thought we were out of our mind. Why would you go to Montana? What proof do you have that Judaism has a future there? And then in Montana, even the people that liked us and wanted us to move, they said, listen, you're not going to survive here. And the results speak for itself. You got to have faith in yourself and in your mission, and the rest leave up to God, and everything will work out just fine.
Absolutely, absolutely. This is a question, I'm not sure who it is addressed to. What was the involvement of Southern Poverty Law Center and why?
When the neo-Nazis made their little shenanigans up in the Flathead Valley in 2016, Southern Poverty Law got involved to defend the 3 Jewish families that were being attacked by the white supremacists from Ohio online. And so their involvement was with the Gersh family, with Francine Roston, and with Alan Setra, the 3 families that were attacked. And they were actually very supportive. I know that politically, SPLC is a very, very debated organization. It's considered very much aligned with one political party over the other. But I will say that here in Montana, the ADL did nothing practically for the Jewish community up in the Flathead. And the only ones that really did something practical was SPLC. And I know this from the families that were the victims of that white supremacist attack.
Amy and Jerry, what was the biggest surprise that came to you from making this film? Was there a misconception you came in with and you left with something else?
Answer that.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, the biggest surprise was that there was all these different ways of being Jewish in Montana. I think, you know, being from a place like Boston where there are, you know, all kinds of synagogues, I just kind of assumed, like maybe a lot of people that, and maybe the people that Chaim was talking about, you know, initially, that there probably wasn't a real rich Jewish community there. And it's not big, but it's incredibly passionate. And what I loved about the Jewish community there is that the congregants feel very comfortable, you know, kind of going back and forth between different synagogues. They don't really see the same kind of polemical, or they don't have the same polemical arguments, perhaps, that the rabbis might have. So that was really cool, and I don't see that as much in a place like Boston. People tend to kind of stay in their lane here. So that was a wonderful, pleasurable thing that I think a community like Boston could learn from. in terms of misconceptions, I mean, we didn't know what we didn't know when we started. We discovered that a lot of people who are secular, who are friends of ours, had many misconceptions about Chabad. And part of the reason we kept returning and doing more film shoots with Chaim and his family and other members of the community was because we were grappling with those misconceptions, and we wanted to make sure that, like Chaim said, that we were making a fair-minded film. And so, you know, everything from Chabad headquarters basically underwrites, you know, all of the operations of all of the different Chabad communities all over the world.
A misconception.
That's a misconception.
Yeah.
You know, Chabad helps to provide like a seed grant, basically, from what I understand. Chaim could talk more, and I'm sure you all could talk more about that. But
Not
our
any-
understanding is that that's what they provide, and then it's the responsibility of the Chabad family to raise their budget and, you know, manage their own programming.
Well, the biggest misconception of our friends, and these are highly educated, you know, college graduates, is so many people thought that Chabad is trying to make everybody into a Hasid. That you go walk into the mitzvah mobile and they grab you and you come out and you become a Hasid. And that's just, you know, as we said to our friends, that's wrong, 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 wrong. And we use Chaim's congregation as an example, because he will tell you in his many years in Bozeman, I think one or two people have become seriously religious in becoming the Hasids, but everybody else is more Jewishly religious, and that's fine. And that's what Chaim is going for. No one is after your soul. No one is going to make you have a beard. No one is going to, it's just, but that paranoia is so strong in the secular community. So we're very happy to discredit that stupid idea.
And Jerry, the truth is that I really don't want to make everyone a chassid, but you're the only exception.
Except for me.
I'd like you to
Jerry's
be
already a chassid.
Huh?
Oh, Jerry's already a chassid. He loves mezuzahs.
Jerry, the whole movie was worth it because 4 years ago last week, it was the anniversary, Jerry, at the age of, I think, 71 at the time, put on tefillin for the very first time at the Shul of Bozeman.
It's
And
true.
I told him that he was very lucky that he was circumcised already because we would have done that too. But truly, if you think from the Rebbe's perspective, the 4 years of schlepping and making a film, it all boils down to the fact that Jerry put on film, that Jerry and Amy now have, I know they said they had a mezuzah for a long time, but now they have a kosher mezuzah on their front door. And the film itself, Jerry and Amy, and I have to give you guys credit again because all the film festivals where you're showing the film are helping debunk that and allowing secular Jews who would never step foot into the mitzvah tent because they might come out as a chassid, whether it was me sitting at the Boston Film Festival or going to Berkeley. I sat in Berkeley, California at a film festival and no one threw rocks at me. They had questions. I did my best to answer. And I think that is an incredible thing that this film is bringing to the forefront, that we are capable of having conversations without killing each other, berating each other, and we simply can have dialogue and healthy dialogue as Jews, even if we don't agree at the end of the conversation.
I believe the case in point would be to see the friendship between you and the producers coming from such a different background and from a different starting from a different point of view, but you know, together, you know, you seem to be friends. So I think that's
Right.
very beautiful.
Yeah.
Very nice. I know from the film about the seed money, that doesn't happen anymore. Definitely, you know, definitely
It
not
happened in
what I hope it's
Montana.
not.
It happened in Montana, which is why Jerry and Amy referred to that.
So even the seed money doesn't happen anymore?
The
Only
seed
in
money
remote
doesn't happen.
locations.
Interesting.
In here. Okay. No. Also, in the film, there's one of the people interviewed says that Chabad is collecting souls for the rosters, and that we're a very wealthy organization. And you know, it's you know, again, that's the beauty of this film. It really brings to light, you know, how other people, you know, view Chabad. Okay, we have. Rabbi Brooke, what are the challenges you face with raising your kids in Montana?
So you have all night? I mean, you guys want to spend the whole night chatting about it? Obviously, Jewish education is the primary. the primary challenge would be, how do you ensure, are you with me? Okay, okay. The primary challenge is, how do you ensure that your own children are raised with not only the philosophy, but the structure and the spiritual health that Javi and I would like our children to grow up with. Our children attend local non-Jewish schools. 3 of them are public school, 2 of them are private school. And that's for a host of other reasons. I don't recommend it. It's just a personal part of our journey based on the needs of our children. And they supplement their Jewish education online with private tutors, with the Jewish online school. There's a host of ways we give them education. That's the biggest challenge. Adopted children always have more challenges than biological children just by default, because they have attachment issues associated with not being with their biological parents. And we are a very therapeutic family. We take therapy very seriously in order to give our children what they need. So it's a very loaded question, but I assure whoever asked that question that it's a lot of work, and the majority of our work goes into ensuring that our children get not only spiritual education, but the therapeutic needs that they need each individually for where they're coming from and where they're heading.
Very, very interesting. Okay. We have from Henry Tenenbaum, we are planning on traveling to Bozeman next May 2021 to tour the area. We'll plan on stopping to see this Chabad.
2021 sounds like a plan, because right now we have closed our Chabad house to all out-of-state people because of the rise of COVID here right now. I know it's funny to tell that to people in Florida, where you guys have crazy numbers, but for Montana, we have some crazy numbers too. But Henry, I look forward to spending Friday night Shabbos with you at the Shul of Bozeman.
Beautiful.
Mask free.
Mask free someday.
Yeah.
What was that?
I said, I hope we'll be mask free.
Hopefully. It was we have a comment here. It was very disheartening that the loving gesture of personally delivering matzah to a Jew was considered to be offensive.
I don't want this person to be disheartened. I want them to know that Jews don't always get along. In case you didn't know that, Jerry and Amy came to Montana thinking all the Jews get along. And the reason they came to Montana thinking that is precisely because they never attended shul before. Had they attended shul before, they would have known that Jews don't always get along. And so the fact that a woman on the film, a doctor, Catherine Borgenicht, who's a friend of mine, I sit on an advisory board at the cancer support community with her. She just doesn't want me to get involved in her religious life. And she has to make that announcement loud and clear on a film. That tells you how connected she is with her faith. Because otherwise she wouldn't care if a rabbi dropped off a box of crackers at her house. She would take it and enjoy it or throw it out. But if she has to get on a film and talk about it, it tells you that Judaism touches her to the core. And I still sit with her on the advisory board and we still talk to each other. And that's the beauty of it. You don't have to like my matzahs, you just have to be a mensch.
There you
By the
go.
way,
Fair.
you just see a little thing on the screen. And actually, I feel sorry for Catherine probably more than anybody else in the film, because if you saw the complete interview, she's very anguished about that, because she indeed likes Chaim very much personally, but just does not want him to bring matzahs to her house. That's, it's just, she's a civil libertarian about Judaism. So it's a much more complicated story than we have in the film.
Absolutely. I see Bob, the Landmans have a question, and they're going to come in.
Just a comment, Rabbi. We went through Bozeman in 2012. You were not there. You were out of town at the time. It was in the summertime. But we were walking around before Shabbos. We were walking around and buying food at the Albertsons that had kosher food. We were very happy. And there was a young couple there, with a young frum couple with a couple kids in tow. And originally, I realized it wasn't a Chabad rabbi, because they weren't Chabad. But they were, and so I approached the guy and I said, why are you from the area? And he said, no. He says, I said, well, why are you here? Are you on vacation? He said, no, I'm here for 6 weeks. He says, I'm a mashgiach out of Denver, and I'm here supervising the wheat, the grinding of the wheat that is going to be shipped to Israel to make matzah,
which will come back.
Which will end up in UK.
Gluten-free oats. It was gluten-free oats for matzah, for the gluten-free matzah going to Israel.
Yeah. Right.
Very nice fellow. You probably have met him at one point or another, but very
People
nice
don't know
couple.
that all the gluten-free matzah you get, all the gluten-free shmura matzah, the oats actually come from Belgrade, Montana, right outside of Bozeman.
Well, he's the guy that was watching him. And I will tell you also, and Rabbi knows this, we've talked about this many times, we travel around the country in our RV. Wherever we go, particularly with Shabbos, we try to get close to Chabad. And we've met lots of Chabad rabbis, and we have lots of great experiences meeting rabbis all over the country, including Alaska, and really enjoy visiting the Chabad houses and meeting people. Santa Fe was one of the most interesting because in addition to the normal people that were there were a lot of what they call crypto Jews there. And I was kind of interested in learning about crypto Jews. And here I go into the Chabad house and I meet a half a dozen of them.
Well, I'm sorry I missed you when you were out here. Come again soon.
We will.
We love Bozeman.
Okay.
And we love
Who doesn't love Bozeman?
did a great job.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
You're welcome.
Another question, this one for Amy and Jerry. What were Amy and Jerry's individual functions in making the film?
Thank you.
Yeah, so initially I was producing the film, which is basically managing all aspects of the movie, hiring the crew, scheduling all the logistics, coordinating schedules with Chaim and all the other subjects of the film. And then at some point, I think, and then I started to get involved much more creatively in doing some research and doing some reading and starting to figure out, what's the story that we're telling and how is it unfolding. And so at one point, Jerry said to me, I think you're basically co-directing. We should be co-directing this thing. And I said, yeah. So the difference between producing and directing is very subtle, but ultimately the directing means that what you see on screen, the director is responsible for. And that the buck stops with the director. So basically, Jerry and I argued over everything you see on screen for about 9 months. It takes a long time to edit a film because you collect, I don't know, we probably had 40 to 50 hours of footage, and you edit that down to what ends up being a 7 to 8 minute film. And you can't have everything in there, and you can't tell everybody's story in a lot of detail. But we spent a lot of time. We also had an editor or 2 different editors on the film at different times, and so they have opinions too. So there was a lot of debate, just like there is in the Jewish community over different issues. There was a lot of debate in our edit room about how to structure the film, especially around when to give people enough information to move forward. I think that was the most complicated thing in a film like this, to not assume people knew things that they may or may not have known. We learned a lot, and we internalized a lot of what we learned when we made the film. So we really had to be careful that we were, giving audience enough information to go to the next step.
And
Not-
especially about Chabad itself.
Yeah, especially about Chabad, and not giving them too much information because we're not making a PowerPoint presentation or we're not writing a book. It's a visual medium. We're telling a story in a movie form. So it's a very tricky balance, and it took a long time to figure that out.
And if I could just add to that, I mean, when it came, for example, you guys got to a point where you realized you can't make a film about a Chabad rabbi in Montana and not address the Rebbe and talk about who the Rebbe is and how he fits into this whole thing.
Right.
And the whole. So suddenly we were working with GEM, Jewish Educational Media, to get clips about the Rebbe and proper wording about the Rebbe, and going to New York and hunting me down on Kingston Avenue and embarrassing me in front of the whole Crown Heights and all of that. But it definitely gave an entire segment of American Jewry a glimpse into who the Rebbe was in a way that was never portrayed and never delivered before. It's, unless they're looking for it or they're going to a Chabad house, where is a Jew? Forget about the Reform and Conservative, unaffiliated Jews who go to film festivals. That's their religion. They go to Jewish film festivals. They are now being exposed to a part of their faith that they were unfamiliar with until. And to me, that's a great tribute to the Rebbe, that a film about Chabad in Montana, if the film would have come out without giving the Rebbe the credit for being the founder of these Chabad houses, it would have been a great, it would be a dismay to me, but it would be a desecration to everything the Rebbe worked so hard for. So I'm glad that you guys figured out a way, and a classy way, how to make that part of the story.
Yeah, I think we were not only thinking about, we have so many audiences. So besides the secular non-Chabad audience, we were thinking about Chabad congregations at Chabads who have heard all your stories, all the rabbis here about the Rebbe, and yet they have never actually seen you guys walking around Crown Heights, and they've never actually seen the places that you're talking about. So that we always thought of that, thinking of like Chaim's Bozeman people for the first time actually seeing Chaim not in Bozeman but in Crown Heights, and that's, I assume, is very interesting for people.
Well, I'm just glad you met with my principal, Rabbi Lustig, and not with my 6th grade teacher.
Yeah.
Rabbi Chaim, what was the reaction from your family and community with regards to adoption?
Let's start with the basics. Our close family knew that we were about to adopt a baby, our very close family. They were obviously delighted, although it was new to them, the whole concept. It was a foreign concept. It was perhaps even a taboo concept. The reality was that our family, both my family, which on the Brooks side of the family, my father's side of the family, they tend to be a little bit more of tough cookies and a little bit less understanding of anything diverse, but they were very, very supportive. And my wife's side of the family was certainly very supportive. Right? Your father's laughing because he knows how true it is. He got it. He understood exactly how politically correct I just expressed what the Brooks are. That being said, there was a lot of questions. People had questions. I remember standing on Kingston Avenue telling some of my closest acquaintances, I wouldn't say friends, but acquaintances, I said, by the way, we adopted a baby on Tuesday. And there was just this look like, okay, Hemshel, I know you do crazy things, but is this for real? Are you pulling my leg? Like people didn't want to get caught saying the wrong thing. But the community in Bozeman is a very, very open-minded community. There's many, many adopted children in Bozeman. And so outside of the Orthodox community, adoption is very common. So they were very supportive. The community, it was our largest event that we ever had at that point. 125 people came to Chaya's adoption party, which for Bozeman is a big deal. It was a Sunday morning brunch, and it was really a beautiful event. And we shared with the community how we felt when we dealt with infertility. We felt like the Jews standing at the sea, where the Egyptians are behind us. There's no future. All the promises are down the tubes. The future is bleak. It's dark. And then when the right moment came, God split the sea for us, and the rest is history. And that's literally how we felt. It wasn't like, okay, now we have a baby, let's play house. When you adopt a baby and you go in the adoption agency, you walk out with your baby, the agony and the pain, not the fact, in other words, it doesn't make you forget that you struggle with infertility, but the pain and the realness of the struggle disappears literally instantly. And that's how we felt walking out of the adoption agency that Tuesday morning, Chav Gimel Cheshvan, the 23rd of Cheshvan, November 10th, 2009. So that was the first baby. Of course, we adopted 4 children after Chaya. Each one has their own journey. We have Meni, who's 7. He's our black son. He's what makes our family biracial. We have Zizi, who's going to be 10 on Shmini Atzeres. She was 11 months after Chaya. We have Shoshana, who we adopted at age of 12. Her name was Courtney, and then a year later, she chose a Jewish name, Shoshana. She just turned 16 last week. I flew to Utah to visit her for her birthday. And Chanalea, who's named for my mother, who's going to be 3 on Chav Vavav in just 3 weeks from now. So each one of them has their own journey. You got to have fun in the process. So like when I'm on a flight with Chavi and the kids, and then he's misbehaving, which he always does, I tell Chavi, don't tell the flight attendants that he's ours. It'll take them at least a half an hour to figure out that he's one of ours. And meanwhile, we can get a break. Of course, she doesn't listen to me, but you have to be able to have a good time. Or when the Orthodox visitors come, we get a lot of Orthodox visitors in the summer, and they sit around our Shabbos table. I always do this. I try at least. So I make sure to slip in casually that this is my daughter Shoshana, who's 14. And then 5 minutes later, I casually mention that I'm married for 13 years. And I see all these religious Jews trying to figure out how does he have a 14-year-old daughter if he's married for 13 years. And I give it about 3 minutes, and then I say, it happens. And they're like, literally, you could see internally, they're sitting at my Shabbos table. They can't say anything, but they're exploding internally. Then about 5 minutes later, I say, by the way, all of our children are adopted. And the reason I can do that Friday night is because Manny's sleeping. It's late Friday night, so I can get away with it. If Manny was around, they'd pick up on it. but you have to be able to have fun with the journey that God gives you. And I think it's portrayed in the film that despite our challenges, and we have real challenges, I don't want you to be fooled, despite all of the challenges, you have to be able to live life and recognize that whatever God gives you, you got to enjoy it and have a blast. And we try very hard every day to have a blast with whatever God gives us. And I think it shows. What's the other option? Being bitter and miserable? Who wants a miserable rabbi? Who wants a miserable husband? I wouldn't want a miserable rabbi. If your rabbi's miserable, kick him the hell out and get a new one. So you got to be happy. You got to be joyous. You got to be upbeat. And when God throws you a curveball, which he does very often, figure out how to hit a curveball.
That's amazing. That's absolutely amazing. Another question, any reaction of the local Montana community to the documentary? Maybe, I don't know, we could get an answer on both ends, because I know Jerry and Amy are in touch, were in touch obviously to coordinate with other members of the community, and Rabbi Chaim has boots on the ground.
Yeah, so we had planned prior to COVID to have a big celebration. There's a wonderful historic theater in downtown Bozeman called the Ellen, and we had booked it, and I think it was for April, maybe. I don't remember now. Yeah. And obviously that got canceled, and then we rescheduled it for June, and then that's not happening now either. So we ended up doing...
It's not June yet.
What?
It's June already?
It's June already.
I think, yeah.
Yeah. June is past time, I know.
Yes.
Goes by like that. So, you know, I think people have seen it because it's been available online. We had a limited time online screening for the public for like 12 days in May and June. And so some of the community has seen it and written us to thank us for the film, but we haven't been able to sort of celebrate. Sadly, we haven't been able to celebrate with the whole community, which we were really hoping to do. And maybe we'll be able to do that at some point in the future, but, you know, we're not counting on it at this moment. But
Rabbi Ed did come visit me right after the film came out, and he asked me, he was here in my house in the living room, and he asked me what I thought about the film, and I told him I think all the rabbis in the film made Chabad look fantastic. And I believe that. I believe that every single individual that spoke on that film made the Rebbe and Chabad very proud. Because if you're so bothered about mezuzahs on doors, you know, because it's your members, and you have to put mezuzahs. I'm glad finally they're going to start putting mezuzahs on the members' doors. I actually saw the other day the student rabbi in Billings has a campaign out to put mezuzahs on all the doors in Billings. He's going to have a hard time finding doors that don't have them, but that's because we beat him to it. But it's a good thing. This is good for the Jews. I want every Reform rabbi. Actually, in the email he wrote that they're giving kosher mezuzahs. Which look at that. Look where we come. Reform rabbis are letting their congregation know that not only they're putting up mezuzah, but they're kosher. The Rebbe won this war like you can't imagine.
Absolutely. Was anyone upset with the way they were portrayed in the film?
you want to take that?
That's a good question. I don't think anybody has said that to us. I think, you know, all the rabbis would like to have been the star of the movie. So I think, you know, honestly, the other two rabbis think they were portrayed very fairly, and what they said was good, but they would have liked to be the star of the film, which I understand, but they're not quite as happy being featured in the film as I would like them to be, but c'est la vie. What can I say? It's, you know, Chaim was our guy, and he was what we wanted to talk about for the film. So that's it. Rabbi Chaim Steinmetz, I believe you had a question. I saw your hand up.
Or a comment.
Yes.
I had too many comments, so I'll start.
Okay.
First, Rabbi Chaim Brook, when he talked about the Brook side, I just want to share with you that it's you, Father, and please don't apply your father's kindness and nature to the rest of the Brook clan. Number two, I was wondering if Rabbi Brook can share with us, and we saw a glimpse of the big sign. You bet your what? I don't want to say what. That there is Chabad in Montana. I had few members who came and they shared with me in dismay the photo of it, and I already shared my opinion with Rabbi Brook in private in New York once. but I wonder if you can shed any experience you had about that big
Billboard.
sign, billboard. And how long did you have it? I assume it's not there anymore, right?
Not there because I ran out of funds, but not because I didn't enjoy having it up. I had it up, I think it was about 8 months, 7 months. It was right in downtown Bozeman over Heaves, which is a grocery right in town. I work with a local marketing team, a non-Jewish marketing team, and we were thinking of putting up a billboard to create awareness that Chabad is in town and that Judaism is alive and well in Montana. And they came up, these are non-Jews, they came up with a great slogan. I don't remember the exact line, but is there Judaism in Montana? And then it said in big, you bet your tuchus. And it was spelled specifically the way tuchus is spelled on the Frisco Kid, which anyone that grew up watching the Frisco Kid got the context of the tuchus. Now, did I get any negative feedback? Yeah, 3 or 4 Jews that drove through town, mostly Orthodox Jews, were very, their whole religion was shattered from the fact that I put up a billboard like that. They were embarrassed and humiliated. And I'm not sure if I was disappointed by their emails or it gave me even more resolve. I'm still not sure. Locally, it did exactly what it was supposed to do, which was create awareness, create a conversation. And the few people who don't like Chabad had their blood pressure go up, which is a win-win on all fronts. So, you know, I remember our conversation about it. You're not the only Chabad rabbi that had reservations about it, but that's why you're in Sarasota and I'm in Montana. If you would do that in Sarasota, you'd probably be in prison. If I would, you know, everyone has to be in the proper play. In Montana, no one gets offended by tuchus.
I love the honesty.
I happen to be sitting on one of those right now.
We're getting to the last couple of questions before we conclude. Rabbi Chaim, have you experienced any racism with a biracial family?
I have not. As I said earlier, my son Manny has been attending a local Montessori, non-Jewish Montessori school since, I don't know, he's 7 now, so probably 3-4 years he's been going to a local school where he's the only black child, he's the only non-white kid. And now last year he attended the local public school in 1st grade. Again, there are a couple of black kids in his particular school, but very few. They're all adopted. There's no black, there's very few black families here in Montana. And no, we've never experienced anything but love and warmth and loving welcome from the community, both the Jewish community and the collective community. You have to remember, Montanans are libertarians. So if you don't know what that means in simple English, it means they don't care if you're Muslim, Jewish, Buddhist. They don't care if you're white, black, purple, or Muslim. All they care, they welcome you equally as long as you don't step foot on their property without permission. And if you step foot on their property without permission, doesn't matter what color you are, you're going to get shot. That's what we stand for here in Montana. And so they really don't care. It's a beautiful thing. Forget about many, right, being black. I've been walking around Montana with a yarmulke and tzitzis for 16 years since I started visiting Montana as a yeshiva student. And I go to every nook and cranny around the state. I go to little towns, population 25. I have never once encountered anyone say anything negative about Jews. Are there ignorant people? Are there people that have a lot of questions? You bet. But instead of waiting for them to say something negative, I confront them. I walk up to them straight to their face and say, hey, you look a little confused. I just want you to know I'm Jewish. And that, everything calms down. And now they feel open to have a conversation. That's what we need to do. I know the ADL will go out of business if we get rid of all anti-Semites. But most of the people that the ADL considers anti-Semites are not anti-Semites. They're ignorant people. And instead of condemning them, we need to educate them. And with 1 million people in Montana and only about 4,000 Jews, I have a lot of work with the Gentile community. I work with the Gentile community a lot. I meet with non-Jews all the time. And I consider it an honor to be able to educate, uplift, and inspire not just the Jews of Montana, but the way the Rebbe envisioned it, every human being that I come in contact with to be uplifted to a new plane, a more spiritual plane, a plane in which there is no fragmentation, where there is no division, where it's all about true equality, which is recognizing that everyone has a neshama, a godly gift within them that allows them to prosper and be an incredible resource for humanity.
Very nice, very nice. And to conclude, Jerry and Amy, what's next? What's the next project? Are you doing a 2.0?
but we might be doing so. We're having a toe in the water thinking about another rabbi in our film, Alan Setcher, who is the oldest rabbi, who is Chaim's very good friend. And he turns out he was one of the guys who Martin Luther King called to Florida, to St. Augustine, to help desegregate the city of St. Augustine. Like all of you are Floridians, you know that it was a time when black people could not go to the public beach in St. Augustine. It was only for white people. So rabbis were very instrumental in helping to make sure black people got their rights, and we might be telling the story in a little film about this. I'm jumping subjects. First, I want to thank Rabbi Levy for being so courageous and kind to arrange this and to bring other Chabads together for the screening. My little advertising, I see Rabbi Mendy and Rabbi Chaim Steinmetz. We really hope that all the Chabad rabbis tell other Chabad rabbis to show our film. We have had 13 across America. That's a start. But I think a lot of rabbis are a little hesitant because it's not a public relations film about Chabad. It's a deep film about Chabad. So if you can tell people to show it, that they're safe, and that we can have a great discussion like this afterward, which was fantastic. I think everybody feels warm and happy after talking together. We can do this in other communities in America. Please spread the word on The Rabbi Goes West.
Absolutely, and I will be forwarding you. We're getting a lot of feedback, and it's coming in as we're talking, and I will definitely be forwarding it to you. Also, for those that have friends that did not get a chance to see the film, the film will still be able. You will still be able to stream it with a password. Any of the 5 rabbis will be able to provide you with the link and password to view it if you have any friends that are local and want to see it. We have till Wednesday at noon, and I strongly suggest that the more people watch it, the merrier. It's definitely very interesting. Rabbi Chaim, before we conclude, do you have any mezuzahs left to put up in Montana? Are you still doing mezuzahs? Is it slowed down? Has business slowed down, or what's going on there?
Beauty of mezuzah is that you could do it even during COVID. They could stand inside the house in the window, and I could get the mezuzah on the door. So before Pesach, because I didn't have yeshiva students this year, I personally hand-delivered 250 boxes of matzah, except to Catherine. To everyone else, 250 boxes of matzah to homes here in Bozeman. And what I discovered was that we got a long way to go. So immediately after Pesach, we ordered another 60 mezuzahs, and we started putting up new mezuzahs. So we're definitely still on it. And we will not rest until you can bet your tuchus that we will not rest. I just did that for your father. We will not rest until Yiddishkeit will continue.
You're giving him white ears.
I know. Tell him I'm not his son. He doesn't have to get the white ear from me. And until every Jewish home in Montana is not only somewhat Jewish or a little bit Jewish, but fully vibrant in the Jewish experience. And I hope Hashem gives Chavi and I the energy and the keiches to keep the strength to keep doing what the Rebbe entrusted us to do, because if he does, the sky is truly the limit in Big Sky country, and we hope to do it for many, many decades to come.
Beautiful. Thank you very much, and I'm sure you have an open invitation for anyone traveling through Bozeman to stop by and come join you for a Shabbos. And thank you, Amy and Jerry, for the opportunity to be able to screen this film. And hopefully we see you again. Hopefully maybe there'll be a sequel, another film with Rabbi Chaim or another rabbi. Very nice. Beautiful.
Thanks, everybody. Wonderful conversation. Great questions. Thanks for all the chats, too.
Thank you. Likewise.
Take care.